Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm gonna show you the rarest, or rather the most expensive JRPGs I own for Nintendo consoles. I'll be covering all the home consoles and also the portable systems. So let's begin! I want to start with the original NES, and honestly I have nothing to brag about. I don't really collect for the NES. I was more interested in growing up in other types of games. I didn't get into role-playing games until I was like 20 years old, and when I got interested in collecting games for this genre, I didn't really care much for NES RPGs. There are some great, influential and historically important games out there, but Crystallis is the best I can do. Like I said, I'm not really interested in collecting for the NES, and most of the rare JRPGs on the system are like the Dragon Warrior games, which I don't have and I'm probably never gonna own because they're just too damn expensive nowadays. Now Super Nintendo is the same case, most of the games that I own are from other genres, and I do have some RPGs here and there, but most of the cheap ones. I got late, very late into collecting RPGs for the system, so I missed my chance, and the best I can do right now is Super Mario RPG, which isn't rare. You can still find a million copies out there. I think they go for like 50 or 60 bucks each. Loose cartridge, complete in box, I have no idea, probably $200 nowadays. Now, I have nothing for the Nintendo 64 because I never really cared about the system, never grew up with one. I'm still looking for the only RPG that I'm interested in collecting for the system, which is Ogre Battle. Someday, man, someday. Finally, the Nintendo GameCube and the Wii. These are consoles where I did get pretty early into collecting games, but I never really owned the systems when I was little or when I was younger, so I don't have that many games for either system, but the rarest that I own are the two Fire Emblem games. However, the Fire Emblem game on the Wii is not exactly the rarest. It goes for the same price as another RPG that I'll show in a minute, which is actually more rare just because it is harder to find. This is easier to find, but they both go for the exact same price. And Path of Radiance is pretty much my holy grail on the GameCube. I know there's like the Phantasy Star Online Plus, which is more expensive. I know there's this Pokemon box, which is way more expensive, but I'm proud to own these games, and the story behind this game, Path of Radiance, is back when I was a reseller, somewhere around 11 years ago, more or less. This game was still on the $25 to $30 range. I'm not kidding. And I got this guy who was selling a GameCube with a bunch of games, including a mint condition of this game right here. And he didn't seem to care, he sold me the entire GameCube for like $100. So you could say pretty much I got this game for free because I resold all the other games and the console itself. A couple of weeks later, I managed to get another mint copy of this game, but that's the one I sold for like $30. Imagine this game $30 nowadays. It's crazy, right? But it probably goes for what, $250 nowadays? Jesus, how times have changed, man. Sakura Wars, which I've covered a million times on this channel, is a little bit harder to find than Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn on the Wii. Both go nowadays for almost the exact same price, but it's pretty accurate to say this one is more rare, right? The story behind this game is, well, when I was still living in Canada, I lived with this guy. He was the landlord there, the owner of the house, and he was a reseller. And it just happened to have this game for sale. Now back then, this game wasn't that expensive, and I traded the game. I traded a copy of Crash Insane Trilogy for the Switch, and a pretty rough copy, not so good condition of Star Ocean: The Second Story. Both games for this one, so imagine, this is a game that I didn't get very lucky with, like other games like Path of Radiance, which was dirt cheap. Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn was also dirt cheap. This guy showed up at my store one day around 8 years ago and sold the game to me for like 15 bucks. But Sakura Wars, as you can see, it kinda hurt, but it was totally worth it because the game goes for over $100 and something nowadays. I don't have anything for the Wii U because I never really cared about the console. I still don't care about it nowadays, maybe someday, and it barely has any RPGs, so yeah. And last but not least, for the Nintendo Switch, I own Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna. I can't believe this game went up in price. It's currently like $60 or $70 nowadays. For whatever the fuck reason, I have no fucking clue. The point is that there's barely any rare Switch JRPGs out there, probably Atelier Ryza being the most expensive of them all. I have no idea. I don't really own that many RPGs for the Switch, and all of the ones that I own are like $40, $45 and below, but this one just so happens to be the most expensive. Rare? Nah. Now, the Game Boy. I barely have any games for this system. I grew up with it, but I grew up obviously with other types of games. My first RPG, however, that I ever played in my life was Final Fantasy Legend 2. I much later found out, thanks to the internet, that it was Saga 2. It just so happened to have the Final Fantasy name for publicity reasons, marketing reasons. These games, however, are not rare at all. Final Fantasy Legend 1 and 2, I don't own the third one, and I never played the third one as a matter of fact. But I just wanted to show them because they are important to me, specifically the second one, because it is the first RPG I ever played in my life. Nothing on the Game Boy Color, so let's move on to the Game Boy Advance. I am so lucky to own, complete in box, very good condition copies of both Fire Emblem games on the Game Boy Advance. Now the Sacred Stones isn't that hard and expensive to find compared to the Blazing Sword, which was the very first Fire Emblem we ever got in North America. But the point is that I too got these two games for dirt cheap around 7-8 years ago, probably a little bit more. Fire Emblem the Blazing Sword, I got it, and I'm not kidding, for 20 bucks, probably a little bit less than that. The guy was desperate, posted a few games from all different consoles on Mercado Libre, which is like the Mexican eBay, and I just bought it, specifically for this game. Of course I sold the other game, so this game was practically for free because I got my money back by selling the other games. Sacred Stones was a very similar case. I think the guy was desperate, but he was only selling this game in particular. It's even in better condition than the Blazing Sword that I own. I think I gave him 20 bucks, maybe 25 bucks for it. It was totally worth it because these games go nowadays for way over $100, probably $150 each. I have no idea. The point is, these are the rarest JRPGs I currently own for the Game Boy Advance. Jesus, Fire Emblem sure is taking over my collection when it comes to expensive and rare JRPGs for Nintendo consoles, huh? It shouldn't surprise you because I'm such a big Fire Emblem fan. And when it comes to the Nintendo DS, the rarest that I own, the most expensive, is Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, the remake of the very first Fire Emblem we never got, until much later on the Switch, very recently actually. The same story as the other Fire Emblem games. The guy was selling this game for like 15 bucks, so we met up at this place. I paid 15 bucks for this game, and now I own it, and it's like a $120 game nowadays. Jesus, what's up with Fire Emblem, man? Why are most of the games of this series so goddamn expensive and kinda hard to find nowadays? Isn't this series overly popular nowadays? For the 3DS, I have a bunch of Shin Megami Tensei games, but the rarest and most expensive that I currently own is Soul Hackers, specifically this version which has the soundtrack. Now this game isn't rare at all. Go to eBay right now and you'll find 1 million copies being sold down there, but the price is kinda steep. Nowadays it goes for like $150 for no reason. You probably already noticed, but most of the Shin Megami Tensei games on the 3DS went up in price like crazy. Why? They're fairly new. They're not even 10 years old. They're sought after, yes, because it is a series that's gained more popularity, but I see no reason to overpay 3DS games that much. Totally recommended this game, just don't pay that much for it, because honestly, no game is worth that much. So that's it for Nintendo. All that I have left to show you is my one and only Sega RPG. Of all the consoles, Master System, Genesis, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, Sega CD, the only game I own is Phantasy Star 4. That's right. Anyway, that's the rarest JRPG I own for the Sega Genesis. I think they go for like 50 or 60 bucks each. While I was still living in Canada with my landlord, While I was still living in Canada, I lived with my landlord, who was another... Now, while I was still living in Canada, I don't have anything for the Wii U because I never really cared about the console. I still don't care about it. I can't believe this game went up in price. It's currently like $60 or $70 nowadays. For whatever the fuck reason, I have no fucking clue. Fuck. How can this piece of That's not a bad game at all. I do like this game. Love-hate relationship with this motherfucking... But I see no reason to overpay 3DS games that much. Fuck.